What's up, everybody? Cowboy C3. Well, there was a strange little rumor this week that a guy he's from the Cleveland area. He went out and said that the Cleveland Browns were possibly in talks with somebody, right, with the Cowboys, and said that they were in talks for a trade for Dak Prescott. And the news media jumped all over it, and it was kind of crazy for a minute, but we'll talk about it right here next on Cowboy Spit.
Here we go! Yeah, here we go! Wait, take
Cowboy Spit.
Throws back of the end zone. There's CeeDee Lamb.
What's up, everybody? Before we start, make sure you guys like and subscribe, share it, everything, and let's help me get this channel where it needs to be. So, in team news this week, the Cowboys. There was some other things that people were talking about how the Cowboys may be looking at Joe Milton from New England as a possible trade candidate for them in the not so distant future, and began to do some research, and it seems like it might be true. And word on the street is that New England really doesn't want to give up their backup quarterback. The reason they don't want to give him up is because it gives you a viable option just in case Drake May doesn't work out, or if Drake May gets hurt, you have a young quarterback already in the system, right, that can give you play on the field that's not a humongous drop-off, if you will. But they also said if they have to trade him, they would take a 5th-round pick. Cowboys have 2 5th-round picks, but we'll talk about that in just a minute because this all kind of ties in together. So you had this rumor that came about from a guy in Cleveland. He said that he has some pretty credible sources that the Cleveland Browns were talking to the Dallas Cowboys about a potential trade for Dak Prescott. NFL news media picked it up. A lot of news coverage on it. And I was trying to figure out, man, is this really true? Well, it ended up being this. Check it out. So, good old Bruce said he has some credible sources, and everybody jumped on the fact that he said that the Cleveland Browns were in talks with the Dallas Cowboys for a trade for Dak Prescott. Now, if you know anything about the Cowboys, you also know that Dak Prescott has a no-trade clause in his contract. And Dak's not waiving that no-trade clause to go to Cleveland. So Clown Boy says, I wish it was true, but Dak and his stupid contract are not going anywhere. Well, Clown Boy, Dak Prescott renegotiated and opened up $40 million on the salary cap space. So that stupid contract opened up $40 million in salary cap space, which they haven't done much with. But, you still have time, I guess. If Dak got traded, all the Dak fanboys and Dakinites would have a nationwide protest, kind of like the Luka fans did. Would it be the same thing? I doubt it. Kind of baffles me how people discuss Dak Prescott like this, but they were ready to die over Luka. I mean, they even literally took a casket to American Airlines Center and put it outside the arena. When you have a guy that is a professional athlete, a top 5 draft pick that was supposed to be a superstar, right? And by all stretch of the imagination, I mean, he has been. But he obviously, and I mean, it is kind of a proven fact, he obviously does not take his craft seriously. A professional athlete is just that. He is a professional athlete. He is paid to be a professional athlete, or she. Paid to be a professional athlete. You're paid to stay in shape. You're paid to work on your craft. You're paid to do these things for the betterment of the football team. Dak and Luka are literally on the same career path. They are. But one is supposed to be a absolute super duper star, and the other one was a 4th-round draft pick. Both MVP runner-ups, both lead their teams during the regular season, and both disappear in the playoffs. The same exact career path. But people like Clown Boy have this to say about Dak Prescott, but they have this to say about Luka Doncic. It baffles me. Like, it's crazy that a guy can come in consistently overweight, consistently miss time where the team has to force him to get in shape, doesn't really show up till after the playoffs, and then goes to the finals and lays an absolute dud, but he's a top 5 player. It's crazy. Now, one thing you did say, Clown Boy, that I absolutely agree with is that if you do trade a player like that, you absolutely should have got more for him. Absolutely. I do agree with that. But you're literally talking about 2 players, one that is overachieved, a 4th-round draft pick that wasn't even supposed to be the quarterback for the Cowboys. He was supposed to be a project. And the other one that was drafted to be the face of the franchise. Couldn't stay in shape. Word has he had an alcohol problem and came in 45 pounds overweight this season. But you're okay with that. And that says a lot, a whole lot. Anyway, so the rumors about Dak ended up being not true. They did. And, this kind of summed it up. So, ended up being a fallacy. So, but anyway, they went on to say in the interview, and I didn't even really get a sound clip of it because I just thought the whole thing was kind of funny. And I thought the fact that the national media jumped all over the story was funny as well because, You always got to keep the Cowboys in your mouth, especially if it has anything to do with Dak Prescott. It has to be national news, and especially if it has to be something negative about Dak Prescott. It's funny. So the funny part, right, is the way that it all kind of transpired, and then when it wasn't true, they kind of went away. And yes, a lot of that stuff, Clown Boy, I couldn't play all of it because it may potentially get me in trouble, maybe. So Dak Prescott's not going anywhere, and people are gonna have to live with that. Now, there is some concerns that should be addressed about the quarterback situation of the Dallas Cowboys, and there are a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration when it has to do with the quarterback room of the Dallas Cowboys. So Cooper Rush is gone. He is in Baltimore. Trey Lance is still a free agent. Dak Prescott's in the quarterback room, and Will Grier is in the quarterback room. So there is a concern about the quarterback room of the Dallas Cowboys, and rightfully so. You have a quarterback that has had 3 serious injuries, and it always seems like it's pretty strange when it comes to injury with this dude. The first one, of course, in 2020 with the broken leg, kind of a freak accident, running the ball, went to slide and, got tackled from the side and all the weight fell on his ankle and he broke his ankle, had a compound fracture of the ankle, had multiple surgeries on the ankle, but came back the next year and was pretty good, played pretty damn well. However, the next year, first game of the season, actually the next year, he had an injury where on a touchdown pass to CeeDee Lamb at the end of a New England game to win the game in overtime, he strained his calf muscle and missed a few weeks. The next season, hit his thumb on the helmet, broke the thumb at the knuckle, and ended up having to get a screw put in the thumb to act as the joint for his throwing hand thumb. And then last year, he comes back and rips the bone off his hamstring. To be honest, I almost feel like the Cowboys are about one serious injury away from having a really bad quarterback situation going on. And Clownboy said, but with Dak, they have to run the ball more. Well, yeah, this year, that is absolutely true, right? Absolutely. But I think that's the case with any quarterback in the NFL. If you look at the top quarterbacks in the NFL, they have a run game behind them. That's just what makes them better. If you can just sit back and focus on the quarterback throwing 40, 50 passes a game, and this is why I'm kind of concerned about the Cowboys taking a receiver in the first round, because that would just give them more ammunition to throw the ball, because there's really no true running back in their locker room right now, unless they draft another one in the second or third round. And I did a mock draft, and I'll show you that mock draft here in a second, where they did draft a running back in the second round. And I think that it will work out tremendously, also getting a wide receiver in the first round. So there's ways to juggle it. But the last thing that you want to do, and I've said this on a couple of episodes previously, that I feel like that magic number is between 30 and 35 passes for Dak a game. And I think that's a good number because that shows consistency with the offense. It shows the run-pass mix that is probably around 50-50. And it really bolsters well, you know what I mean, for the Cowboy offense. If you look back in the past of Dak Prescott's career, he's been better with a good running back. Kind of like any other quarterback in the NFL, like I said. If you have a running game, it takes pressure off the quarterback because you have to respect the run game. And that's just kind of basic football knowledge, right? That's just what it is. But I feel like the Cowboys are one injury away from having a real quarterback problem. And if Dak Prescott goes out this year, right, unless you trade for somebody like Joe Milton, you could have an issue. So if you look at the team needs right now, quarterback is not on that list. And I think maybe it should be. And I'm not saying in the top 1 or 2 rounds, because I don't think that there's a quarterback other than the top 2 quarterbacks that are maybe top 3 that are graded high enough to get the 12th overall pick in the draft. But in the future, especially in the next upcoming 2 or 3 years, there are some quarterbacks that are in college that are absolutely, worthy of a 12th round pick. But it's all projections. I mean, you can only look at what they do in college and hope that transfers to the NFL. And anytime you draft a quarterback, it's a crapshoot. Nobody ever thought that Dak Prescott would be, MVP runner-up after he was a 4th round pick that was supposed to be the 3rd quarterback on the team and possibly the 4th, like a practice team quarterback. Came out and started and did a pretty good job. And he's done a pretty good job ever since. He's good. There's no doubt about that. He's good. Is he great? I don't know. And then with these injuries, especially this leg injury, the ripping the hamstring off the bone, that can hinder his mobility even more. He's already not that mobile, right? But this could hinder it even more. And that could be an issue. So you automatically think, okay, well, free agent quarterbacks that are available. Is there anybody worth that to bring? Is there anybody worth in free agency that is worth bringing in, backing up Dak Prescott, and becoming the starter after he either A, retires, or B, gets hurt and can't play anymore? So you look at the list, and the answer is unequivocally no. So Aaron Rodgers leads the pack at 41 years old. I mean, we all saw him play last year with the Jets. It was bad. It was trash. And on top of that, right, it seemed like he possibly could have been a locker room issue as well, which we all know Aaron Rodgers is kind of an arrogant guy. He kind of beats, he kind of dances to the beat of his own drum. You know what I mean? Like he's always been like that. And you can tell that Aaron Rodgers is not one of those guys that's going to go out in the offseason and put in a whole ton of work and just consistently work on his craft and get better. He's probably going to take some wild trips, you know what I'm saying, overseas and do some crazy stuff and come back and just be ready to play football because he's talented like that, and he always was. Well, Father Time is undefeated, and I think that's starting to catch up with him. He really doesn't have a work ethic like that, and now that he's getting older and the dude looks like he's 55, not 45, he just can't do it anymore. But he loves the game and he still wants to play. So there's been talk about him being, rumored to be the quarterback in Pittsburgh. I don't know why you would get rid of Russell Wilson and bring in Aaron Rodgers, but that's one of those teams where he might fit in and it might be beneficial for him, especially with Mike Tomlin still as the coach. Trey Lance was here last year. We know what that is. Drew Lock hasn't played bad, but I don't know if you turn the keys over to your franchise to Drew Lock. And Joe Flacco, of course, is another guy that's a little bit older. Carson Wentz, we know what that is. Case Keenum, older guy, kind of a journeyman. Easton Stick, Josh Johnson, and the list goes down. So there really isn't much in free agency that you can look at and be like, okay, can this guy come in and take over as the quarterback for the Cowboys? The answer is no. So then you go to the draft and you're like, okay, who are the top quarterbacks in the draft that maybe could come in and do some damage and potentially be the starter after a few years at the starter for the Dallas Cowboys? So the top 2, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are going to go top 5 in the draft, probably top 3. They'll be gone. So then you start to look at Jackson Dart, and there's a lot of teams that say they're interested in Jackson Dart because Jackson Dart he's a pretty good quarterback. He's very serviceable at Ole Miss. Did some things that were made the offense made the offense move very well in Mississippi, but he wasn't phenomenal, right? He really wasn't. They had a prolific offense, but their offense was kind of predicated around the run and play action passes, which may bode well in the NFL because a lot of teams want a quarterback that can play off play action passes. Jalen Milroe is kind of a wild card. He did not perform well at the combine. Still has a pro day coming up, but we've seen him play at University of Alabama, and he flashes. Like, the dude can flat out play football, but he also he makes a lot of mistakes. He's raw. He's extremely athletic. He's a great runner. he's done some things throwing the football that have looked fantastic, but he's also done some things throwing the football that did not bode well at all, including at the combine. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go watch his combine tape and him throwing the football, and it did not look well at all. Quinn Ewers, University of Texas quarterback. I'm not a big fan of Quinn at all. It seems like every pass that he throws is just placed on a pillow and floated to the wide receiver. He throws a lot with anticipation, but his anticipation seems to be wrong a lot. He had a pro day the other day, and to me, just watching him throw the football, it was the same as throwing in football games. Everything floats in the air. It stays in the air for a long time, right? And that doesn't potentially it will lead to problems in the NFL just because DBs cover so much ground so fast, right? This is not like college where you have receivers running down the field wide open. You have small windows to throw to, and you need some velocity to put the ball through those windows. And Quinn Ewers just does not throw the football with a lot of velocity. Will Howard, Tyler Show, Kyle McCord, Dylan Gabriel. I do like Dylan Gabriel. I don't think he's bad at all. He's a little, he's a smaller guy, but he's been around college football for a while as well. Good football player. Really good last year. Had a rough game in the playoffs, but that happens. But a really good football player and will be available down in the 4th, 5th round. Cowboys don't have a 4th round pick, so 5th, maybe 6th round. And then Curtis Rourke at Indiana, to me, was a phenomenal quarterback last year. Led Indiana to I think 11-2 record. 10-3 record. But he's one of those guys that when they played in big moments, such as played Ohio State, played Penn State, it just didn't work out well for him. But against everybody else, he played pretty well. So another guy that you might want to think about maybe as being a potential replacement later down the line, or come in and be the backup for Dak Prescott. Dak signed a big contract. Dak has no trade clause. Dak's not going anywhere unless injury prevents him from being able to play the game. And I just feel like that maybe, just maybe, we're one more big injury away from not seeing Dak Prescott anymore in a Cowboy uniform anyway. But the Cowboys are going to have to do a better job at protecting their quarterback. They have to. You got to shore up this offensive line. You picked up 2 running backs that were good 3 or 4 years ago. They're not anymore. And maybe you would draft a running back in the draft, somewhere high in the draft, that would take the load off your quarterback and make it easier, right? That's the plan. But you need more than one wide receiver to do that as well. So I told you guys I was going to do a mock draft, and I would do one without trades. Just the picks that the Cowboys have, I would use those picks and draft rookies that I felt like would come right in and have the potential to start or be first-day starters right off the bat. So the first one I did was this. These are the picks that the Cowboys have: 12, 44, 76, 149, 171, 174, 204, 211, 239, and 247. Came out with the first pick at number 12. Ashton Jeanty was available, and of course, I took him, right? I feel like that he's going to come. He would come in, not necessarily be the day one starter, but he would be the backup running back, and he would still get 12 to 15 carries a game, kind of like they brought Tony Pollard along. And by year 2 or 3, he would be the starting running back. But he gives you everything that you want in a running back. He gives you power. He gives you speed. He gives you quickness. He gives you lots of yards after contact. And his 40 time wasn't that fantastic, but every film, every tape that you see of the dude, he never gets caught from behind. He never does. So game speed, 40 speed, different. This guy never gets caught from behind. Nick Scorton from A&M, excellent defensive end. Jalen Noel, I like Jalen Noel from Iowa State. Kind of a larger frame guy, muscular guy, makes contested catches, got pretty good quickness. Think he ran in the 4.4s at the combine. Good football player, right? Good football player. I think he could come in and be at least the number 3 receiver right off the bat. If Jalen Tolbert moved out to the number 2, Jalen Noel could come in, be the slot receiver, and do some damage with the Cowboys. C.J. West, the defensive tackle. Jonah Sanker at safety, pretty good safety from Virginia. Kind of a tall guy, muscular frame, covers pretty well. Rangy guy. One thing that I've noticed about the Cowboys safeties with Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson, they're not very rangy, right? They're just not. And I think the Cowboys need safeties back there that are more, at least one. I don't mind Donovan Wilson being in the lineup because Donovan Wilson steps up and plays the run well, and he's kind of the enforcer back in the secondary. But Malik Hooker, I don't know, man. I just think that they can do better at the free safety spot. And, and the rest of the guys on here were just roster, guys that were best, either best player available in the draft or they were the best player at a position that the Cowboys absolutely need to fill in the draft. So my overall draft grade was a A-. I thought it went pretty well, especially with the top 4 picks. I thought that was pretty well. So with my second draft, I'll show you what I did. So I traded down in the second round. I traded from 44 to 57, and I picked up a 4th-round pick at 111, and I picked up a 5th-round pick at 140. My 3rd-round pick, I traded down again from 76 to 82, and I picked up another 4th-round pick and a 7th-round pick for that trade with Seattle. My 5th-round pick at 149, I traded for a 7th-round pick and a 2026 4th-round pick and a 6th-round pick. And my 5th-round pick at 171, I traded back to 195 and got another 4th-round pick in 2026 and a 6th-round pick. And then I traded my 6th-round pick at 195 and I got a 2026 5th-round pick and a 2026 7th-round pick. I traded for the future next year, and I also traded down because I felt like that there was players that I could get at that spot. If I traded down, I still could get the same player at that spot, and this is how that draft went. So the 12th pick, I got to Torrey McMillan from University of Arizona. Tall, rangy wide receiver, ran 4.4 at his pro day. A lot of people had questions about his speed. He proved he wasn't slow. 50-50 guy. You throw the ball up in the air, he's going to get it. He's the best receiver in the draft. To me, he's the best receiver in the draft. At my 57th pick, I picked up TreVeyon Henderson from Ohio State. I got the fast running back. That's what I went for. Wanted a guy that could come in and just take and give you that game-breaking speed that the Cowboys right now, they just don't have. Or if they do have it, like with Devontae Turpin, they just don't know how to use it. With this guy, you can use him running the football or you can use him out of the backfield catching the ball. And he's shown you, all you had to do was watch the playoffs last year. This dude he can take the ball to the house at any time. Then I went after the defensive lineman and I went Deion Walker from Kentucky. I've watched tape of this dude for the last 2 weeks, and he is just a guy that's going to get a lot of penetration. Something that the Cowboys, especially at the 3 technique, that they don't have right now. Osi Odigizua does kind of give you that, but we'll see what Mazi Smith does this year. He progressively has improved. There's been slight improvements, but he's improved a little bit, right? But he also has plays and games where it seems like he's slow off the ball and he gets driven back and he's sitting in a linebacker's lap. Walker, I just don't believe that would happen with him. Andrew Makuba from University of Texas, he absolutely gives you that rangy safety that you're looking for. He gives you the range. He's a rangy dude. Cowboys went to his pro day. I'm almost for certain that this is a guy that they're interested anyway. And I believe even if you don't make a bunch of trades that just open up things for you like this, I believe that he is a player that they would take anyway. Dylan Fairchild, Jared Ivey, Mondon Jr., all of these guys were guys that are starters, really good football players that I felt like could come in and contribute to the team right away. And the rest of the players, I went for filling spots. I went and got another really fast running back at 239 and Brashard Smith from SMU, for another 4.3 guy. I wanted to bring some sort of dynamic to the backfield where you have a home run threat in the backfield right away, but you still get a tall, rangy receiver that comes in and is instantly your number 2 receiver and makes it to where you cannot double cover CeeDee Lamb or he's going to tear your ass up. That's what I went for. I felt like I did it better in this draft, but I had more choices. I had more picks because I made some trades to be able to do so. So I felt like my mock draft went pretty well. Is that a highly aggressive draft with the trades? Of course it is. Would something work out that way in a real life situation? Probably not. But I do feel like that there is some opportunity for the Cowboys to trade down on some picks and pick up some draft capital. Specifically get that 4th round pick back. I think that is essential with this draft coming up. I just do. This is 2 4th round picks in a row that you don't have because of questionable players that you brought into the organization. You bought Trey Lance in 2 years ago. He took away your 4th round pick, and he's not there anymore. He's not even on the active roster anymore. To be honest, he never was really on the active roster. He was always an emergency quarterback, and he was making $8.5 million a year. He made more money. He made more money than Chris Henry. He made just a little bit less money than Saquon Barkley. Mingo last year was a head scratcher. Didn't really understand why they made the trade in the first place. And then, well, actually, I did understand they needed some receiver help, but to give up a 4th round pick for a player that has never caught an NFL touchdown, and Buffalo trades for Amari Cooper, who was a proven wide receiver here. You got upset with him about a COVID shot and you got rid of him. And you got rid of him for a 6th round pick, and then Buffalo picks him up for a 5th round pick, and this guy just politely comes in and catches 100 passes every year. Like, the shit is crazy to me that the Cowboys would pass up on an opportunity like that to bring a guy like that back. If you got to mend some relationships, man, you just do that. Whatever it takes to make your football team better. You bring in a guy in Mingo that has never caught an NFL touchdown in 3 years. It's crazy. I just don't understand it. But you can fix it, right? You would have to be aggressive with the trades and the draft. Will the Cowboys do that? Probably not. But it is something that to look forward to look for. I don't know if I say look forward to, but it's something to look for with the draft coming up soon. We'll see. You did some things in free agency to fill some needs for the team. We'll see how those work out. Dante Fowler is probably the best one that you picked up, and don't get me wrong, he had 10.5 sacks last year. He played extremely well for the Commanders. And he played well for the Cowboys when he was here last time. We'll see what he does to Eberflus's defense. Maybe he can take some pressure off Micah Parsons. Maybe they can become that dynamic duo that we all thought him and DeMarcus Lawrence would be, and it just didn't really work out. Still have some holes. Need to fill them in the draft. My first draft, even with no trades, I felt like it filled holes in places that you needed. You got another receiver. You got an ultra dynamic running back. But in the draft with the trades, I got 2 home run hitters at running back. I got a stud wide receiver, and I filled some holes in some places where I feel like the team would be better. You know what I mean? So we'll see how it all works out. It's coming up. It's right around the corner. So speaking of the draft, we will do a draft show here. I'll do one. I'll probably do it with a few people, working some things out with, just logistics of it and getting people in here. So I'll probably be with 2 or 3 other people, and we'll do a first round draft watch. And, we'll talk about all the picks, particularly the Cowboy pick. I'll talk about that one for sure. I'm excited to see what they do. A lot of people have Matthew Golden as their number 1 pick, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. He gives you an explosive receiver, to complement CeeDee Lamb. And you need somebody that's going to keep that double coverage off CeeDee Lamb. You need a wide receiver that's going to step in. He'll be the number 2 right away, and you have to respect him. Teams just don't respect the Cowboys' number 2 receiver right now. And that's why CeeDee Lamb literally is double covered off the line of scrimmage. You need somebody to take that pressure off CeeDee Lamb. Taking that pressure off CeeDee Lamb would also take pressure off your quarterback. You need a running back that's going to come in, doesn't have to start right away, but will eventually be the starter and take some pressure off the quarterback running the football. Tight end is another position that a lot of people question because Jake Ferguson's year was so off last year, but I think that was just one of those things where, him and Dak have this great chemistry, and then when Cooper Rush stepped in, him and Cooper Rush didn't have that kind of chemistry, and I think that chemistry will come back as long as they can keep Dak upright. So we'll see. Lots of things to talk about here in the next couple of weeks. You got these guys going through these pro days. You got Cowboys showing up to a lot of pro days. They were, at least 2 this week. I'm sure they went to more. And I also think that this Joe Milton trade may be something that you watch out for, particularly as you get closer to the draft, right? But I also think that even more important than making a trade for a guy like Joe Milton, you need to figure out a way to fill that hole in that 4th round. You have to figure that out. This is 2 years in a row that you haven't had that 4th round pick. And a lot of solid players come out of the 4th round. They just do. Top 4 rounds of play where you get, potential starters right out the gate. And we haven't had that in 2 years. And those 2 years that we haven't had has been because of players that were questionable at best. So, Saturday, we'll go live again. We'll talk some more Cowboy news. There's some other things to talk about with the team. We'll talk about some of these pro days and how these guys perform. Cam Ward had a very interesting pro day. He had a lot to say, about the Cowboys in his pro day, which was kind of strange. But we'll talk about that some. And we'll talk about Shedeur Sanders, and how his draft stock may be falling, over some bad interviews, which is kind of strange because, you kind of have to look at the guy you're dealing with. Phenomenal football player, grew up around football his whole life, has an excellent relationship with his father, but, the kid has never wanted for money. He's not very humble at all. Super duper confident, borderline cocky, right? He's done some things, especially if you watch, their show that they do on YouTube. You watch that, you can tell like he's very, very confident. It's borderline cocky, and that rubs some people the wrong way. And it seems like it rubs some people the wrong way in these interviews, and people keep talking about his draft stock falling. But if you watch him play, the dude is a good quarterback. He's tough, stands in the pocket. He's going to deliver some throws. He's going to take some hits. He does things that a lot of quarterbacks in these days, they just don't do. And I think that, he's a good quarterback, but he's going to go to a team, especially in them top 3 picks, where it's going to be a shaky offensive, but maybe a shaky situation in general. I think that Cleveland is a really good fit for him. I just do. I think Tennessee may be a good fit for somebody like Cam Ward. I think the Raiders would be a better fit for Shedeur, but I also think they're a good fit for Jackson Dart. We'll see, though. We'll just see how it all works out. So Saturday, we'll talk about some pro day stuff, talk a little bit about Shedeur. We'll talk about Cam Ward and the Dallas defense, what he had to say about the Dallas defense. I thought it was kind of funny. Another kid, super confident. Yeah, good quarterback, though. Really good quarterback. And we'll talk about roster holes that the Cowboys absolutely need to fill during the draft. And are there any potential free agents that are still sitting out there that the Cowboys might have some interest in? We'll talk about that stuff on Saturday. It's been fun tonight. Dak Prescott's not getting traded, though. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. But anyway, y'all, it's Cowboy C3. You guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. I'll talk to y'all soon. I'll be back Saturday. All right, y'all. Peace.